Back to the story we reported moments ago. The U.S. government is firing back at Russia for its hacking during the presidential election this year. 35 Russian diplomats in Washington, Maryland, and San Francisco have been given 72 hours to leave the United States. President Obama has released an executive order saying, quote, all Americans should be alarmed by Russia's actions. In October, my administration publicized our assessment that Russia took actions intended to interfere with the U.S. election process. These data theft and disclosure activities could only have been directed by the highest levels of the Russian government. Moreover, our diplomats have experienced an unacceptable level of harassment in Moscow by Russian security services and police over the last year. Paula Reid is in Washington, and she joins me now to talk about this. Paula, so take us through this legal announcement by the president under his purview as president of the United States.
Vlad, this is the strongest response the U.S. has ever taken against a state-sponsored cyber attack. In addition to expelling the 35 people you mentioned and closing those compounds in Maryland and New York, the U.S. has also sanctioned 9 individuals and entities, including 2 Russian intelligence agencies, and the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI intend of Russia's hacking in the United States. Now, you mentioned the legal purview for this. This was issued as an executive order. The president had previously issued an executive order giving himself the power to issue economic responses, economic sanctions, in response to a cyber attack. He's using that power here today.
And Paula, why did they not file the legal charges instead of this executive order? Why not file legal charges against the Russians?
That's a great question. We don't see any indictments here today. They say there may be further action. But Vlad, historically, indicting, criminally charging individuals who were hacking on behalf of a nation state hasn't proven to be very successful for the Department of Justice in the United States. I'll use the example of the PLA hackers, the people who were hacking on behalf of the Chinese. They were going into companies in Western Pennsylvania, stealing intellectual property, stealing plans for certain technology. The United States indicted them. But Vlad, that was several years ago, and none of those people have been extradited here to the United States, and there's no reason to think that they're not still in China and still hacking for the government. It was a little embarrassing for the United States, so that's probably one of the reasons they have chosen not to file criminal charges in this particular case.
Does this action and will this action actually deter Russia or any other state or entity that would seek to harm the United States using cyber warfare?
It's not clear, Vlad. The tricky thing about sanctions is that you never really know specifically what their effect will be. The Obama administration has really favored sanctions. They say sanctions like these are sophisticated, they are specific, and they are targeted. They hope that these will be a deterrent, but you never know specifically what will happen when you take action like this, because really, Vlad, as we all know, this is an unprecedented situation.
So can President Trump, just in the same way that President Obama used an executive action, can President-elect Trump do away with this executive action should he choose to?
Legally, yes, he could do away with this. He could amend it. He can do anything he wants to an executive action once he takes office. But if he does that, he's essentially going up against his party in Congress. Vlad, these sanctions, these actions, these have bipartisan support in Congress. So if he chooses to exercise his legal right to amend these or roll these back, he's going to face a fight with his own party in Congress, many of whom he needs to vote to confirm his nominees. So a legal fight, yes, he would win. A political fight, it remains to be seen whether or not he wants to take that on, and certainly whether or not he would win that political fight.
Paula, in the president's statement, as you know, at the end of it, he says, to that end, my administration will be providing a report to Congress in the coming days about Russia's efforts to interfere in our election as well as malicious cyber activity related to our election cycle in previous elections. I'm curious about those last 2 words, previous elections. And we obviously expect that this evidence will perhaps show that. Is that what you're hearing?
That's what it seems like. You know, they continue to say that we have more than we have actually shared. Now it seems they're going to open the kimono a little bit, show people more of the evidence they have, not only for this election, but for previous attempts at interference. It's no secret that the Russians and other adversaries have certainly tried to hack into various political organizations well before this election. That was known. But perhaps they may have additional evidence about the extent. But again, he's cryptic in his statement that was released along with these actions. This does not say specifically what they plan to reveal.
I want to read for our viewers a statement by Senator Chuck Schumer of New York. He says, quote, I strongly support the steps the administration is taking the fight back against Russia's interference in our election. We need to punch back against Russia and punch back hard. I hope the incoming Trump administration, which has been far too close to Russia throughout the campaign and transition, won't think for 1 second about weakening these new sanctions or our existing regime. Both parties ought to be united in standing up to Russian interference in our elections, to their cyber attacks, their illegal annexation of Crimea, and other extra legal interventions. So that goes, Paula, to the question that we were asking, which is, could President Trump do away with this? President-elect Trump, I should say. But clearly, it would be a difficult sell in the legislature.
Exactly. Legally, yes, he can, and legally he would prevail. He has the right to do that once he becomes president. But it would be a big political fight. There's bipartisan support for this in Congress, Vlad, because politicians, political organizations, they're not the only victims of state-sponsored hacking. For the most part, particularly when it comes to the Chinese hacking, it tends to be businesses, both large and small, that lose tremendous amounts of money, ultimately lose jobs because of this kind of hacking. I think the Congress people know that. They know it's much more diversified than just tinkering with the DNC or one specific election, and that is why they support these actions. This cannot continue. Fighting hackers, this happens on various different frontiers right now. You have them tinkering with the markets. They're clearly looking for financial information from consumers. They're looking for IP. And here they were looking to interfere with the election. So it doesn't seem that people in Congress in either party are willing to turn the other cheek, as it has been suggested.
And so why these specific measures, Paula? I mean, certainly the president could do something much stronger, for example, economic sanctions. But why, he's choosing to expel some people. He's closing down some compounds. But could it have been stronger to send a real message? Already, this sends a pretty strong message, as you pointed out. But I wonder if it's enough.
Well, Russia is already a heavily sanctioned country, and the Obama administration prefers sanctions because they believe that they can be specifically tailored to respond to a certain situation. So here it seems that they're really targeting the intelligence community, going after people who are known to work with their intelligence, going after their compounds, going after different entities. They're trying to be specific and be narrowly tailored in the response to hacking of the DNC and interfering with our elections. So economic sanctions are certainly an option, but as I said, Russia is already a heavily sanctioned country. So it seems here that they want to try to have a narrowly tailored response to this situation. So hopefully, in their minds, it serves as a deterrent and not something that will further escalate the situation.
Certainly something we're going to be watching for, I guess, Paula, is how President-elect Trump reacts to the news. And also, I'm sure reporters will be digging in to find out if President Obama and the president-elect spoke about these coming sanctions. And that's certainly going to be something we're looking out for. We're going to keep digging into that. Paula Reid in Washington for us. Thank you very much, Paula.